City of Stevens Point Administrative Appeals Board meeting, recorded February 24th, 2021.
All right, it's 4 o'clock. I will call the February 24th, 2021 Administrative Appeals Board meeting to order. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the November 18th, 2020 meeting. We need a motion to approve or comments. Board Member Nabel.
I motion to approve the minutes from the last board meeting.
I'd second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. The minutes are approved. We have 4 appeals. We will take each one in order as it's posted on the agenda. Each appellant will have the opportunity to speak after staff members speak. So beginning with A, it's 3300 Jefferson Street. I'll ask Mr. Cordes and Mr. Konoski to speak to this one.
I can just go through the staff report very quickly. We've received, I guess, several complaints from a neighbor on this property going back, I think, a year or maybe a little longer regarding vehicles parked in the backyard. There was some compliance with this issue over, I guess, the summer of 2020. Then we received a complaint on November 20th of a vehicle parked back there with a tarp over it. And as happenstance and part of the compliance with this particular situation, there was a driveway permit that was issued for this. And Adam Kuhn, our zoning administrator, was going out to do an inspection of the driveway for compliance. And so I had him check as part of that permit. And he did observe a vehicle in the backyard that was under a tarp. And then so a notice of non-compliance was sent. And let's see here. So let me scroll down. Yeah, no non-compliance was sent. There was a reinspection that was done. The vehicle was still there after December 21st, and I believe the vehicle probably is still there, but you know, the appellant can talk to that. But you know, that's essentially it from our situation. You know, there's a vehicle in the backyard under a tarp that's parked on a grass surface. It's not on an approved surface.
Thank you. Any questions of staff from the board members? And then Mr. Schulfer, you will have an opportunity to speak. Alder Nabel, go ahead.
Thank you, Alder Jennings and Mark Cordes. So there wasn't anything said at that time that a vehicle could be left with a tent or something over it if it was not on a hard surface. It seems to the appellant is looking at the fact that one could be there, but he may not have understood the fact that it still needed to have a hard surface underneath it for it to be in the backyard. It's not based on anything about, you know, after going through all this, it is not being based on the fact that it's visual to anybody. That isn't the point. That's not what the ordinance is about. The ordinance is that it's not parked off of a hard surface. And so it doesn't, the criteria was not met, and I don't see why this would not be considered still another uncomplied, and it was checked out. I don't know what the rule, he says the rules don't apply to everyone. I think they do. If you have a neighbor that calls more than once, that's nothing wrong with that neighbor for doing that. I've had to do it myself when neighbors are uncomfortable doing it. And so my name's on the registration for such a lot of times. And I don't think it's fair to think, well, because one person is going to speak up and no one else has, that this makes it okay. Our city has ordinances so that we can have a guideline that everybody follows. And I want to make sure sorry, looking for the right word again. The person that is trying to not have this go through, that he realizes that it isn't because of the one person. Hopefully he doesn't take that into an issue, because that's not what it's supposed to be about. And he is not in compliance of what the regulations are on regarding parking. And I give him credit for fixing the ones that he did for the driveway and doing it the correct way. And that's wonderful. That's why the ordinance got changed, so people could afford to do something like that. But backyards are not parking lots, and this is in a residential area. And so I move that we do not approve this appeal. Thank you.
Alder Nabel, would it be okay if we allow the appellant to speak
Sure.
before we make the motion? Is that
Oh, definitely. I just,
okay? Any other questions from the board members? Okay, Mr. Schulfer, if you have any comments, would you like to say anything?
I was told there was going to be people on the board that were citizens. Is that true, or?
That is correct.
Because it doesn't look like there's enough people here for that. There was supposed to be three people that was on some board, or people that were had some city position, and then there'd be some citizens on the board. Or is that not true?
I'm
Tori,
a
you're on mute.
citizen member.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there.
I'm a citizen member on it. I'm not affiliated with the city.
Oh, okay. Did anybody else other than Cindy read my thing that I wrote and sent in?
Hey, this is Alder Fischler. I read it, and I did have a couple of questions about that, Mr. Schulfer. So just to understand a little bit more from your perspective, is the issue with the person who reported you and just feeling unfair about what happened there? Just to get a little bit more information about this appeal.
You know, just with talking to Mark and how they kind of pick and choose who they're going to go after, which is only if there's a complaint is somebody going to have to do something. And I know he didn't like when people would say that in my neighborhood, there's many people that are violating, but I'm the only one getting picked on. And I felt that since you're already picking and choosing on who you're going after, I'm dealing with something that no one can see. And I would expect some sense of privacy, and that this person that is going after me is going under trees and stuff. He is on his property, but he's making a point of being able to see it. And he's also going down to the restaurant. I talked to the restaurant owner, who's another.
Mr. Schulfer, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt here. Your neighbor or anyone else, that's not the context of this discussion. I understand that it might inform your opinion on this, but what this board is, this appeal board looks at the information that is in front of us, and that's what we base our decision on. So I ask you to keep your comments pertinent to what is in our packet and not neighbors or other information that informs your position on this. Okay.
Okay. Well, then I'll go back to Mark saying that it was okay to put like a Quonset hut or something over it. And he said that's been used in other situations and that was okay. He knew I was not going to go putting anything underneath it as far as another cement slab or more gravel. My feeling was, instead of putting, what's the difference if it's a Quonset hut to hide it or a camouflaged heart? It's,
If,
and this isn't something that's going to be there forever. This is just, like I stated, until my use of it is done, and I won't put anything else back there.
right. So now what will happen is we bring it back to the board and to staff, and then a motion will be made on this appeal. I'll bring it back to Mr. Cordes. Did you have it? I saw that you might have some further comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, we did have a conversation about, structures and what could be placed on the property as far as putting, vehicles or anything, I guess, for that matter. Once a structure is erected, we don't regulate what goes inside that structure. So the question arose of these framed structures that have the canvas walls. They do require a permit, but you can ultimately store, I guess, again, whatever you choose to store in those. We don't know what's inside those. So we did certainly have that discussion. And that's anybody's right in the city that they can erect one of those if they obtain the proper permits. So yes, we absolutely did have that discussion. The situation as it is there with a tarp over a vehicle is different than a structure that requires a permit from the city.
So if I got a permit to put a tarp over it, being that's all, what you're stating there is that you want to collect money for a permit then.
Hey, Mr. Shelfer, again, I have to interrupt. This is not a back and forth. We have parliamentary procedure that we follow. So your comments have been made. Your information is in the packet. We're now bringing it back to staff and board members. Board members, do you have any other comments? I see both Fischler and Nabel have comments. Nabel, go ahead.
Thank you again. And I am so sorry, Mr. Schulfer, because I do understand what your letter says. I am totally view that this should be not just by complaint based when things like this come through. Our city supposedly does do drive-through areas when they see things. They can't see everything. They do have to rely on citizens a lot. It's a big area, and Mark is one person, and so it's very difficult. And I just don't want him going away feeling like he's not been heard at all. That, to me, one of the reasons why we had this committee. I don't mean about going back and forth. The rules are the rules, but I want him to understand how the rules do apply to everybody. And unfortunately, when someone gets caught, yes, that's what happens, is that then something is done. I live in an area where, Mr. Schulfer, it is all over the place because I live in student rental areas. And it's very frustrating. And I try to go through either the students or the landlords, to try to resolve them. But I've never heard about when you talked about this, and I was going to ask that same question, what a Quonset hut or a tent of some sort would be required for how long. I didn't know there was a permit that had to be gotten for that, but I did know there was a deadline on how long it could be up for storage at one time. Things have been changing in our ordinances, so I'd really like if Mr. Cordes, if you could send me that section, because I would like to understand it better. But all of the rules for any type of vehicle, licensed vehicle for parking, has to be on a hard surface, no matter what. And that is the ordinance. And I feel bad because it is often the case that somebody has to be that person in the neighborhood that's trying to keep things in shape and can be looked at as being the yard police. And I hate that feeling when I've had to do it. That's why I try to go directly to the source. Sometimes that's not really a safe way to do it. And so that's why we have what we do, is there's a source that you can make the report, and then Mark does take it and go further and checks into it further like he did for yours. And, that's why we have this review. But I do understand the feeling, and I just wanted you to understand that we do get that. It's just that there's a lot of people that could have a lot of things stored in their backyards, and it can get not just junky, but unsafe. So we have to have some kinds of parameters that we put into ordinances. And again, I feel bad because you made an effort, which you did, and your kudos to you for doing that right away, because a lot of people don't, for your driveway. And we live inside the city, and it's hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Fischler, go ahead.
I just had a quick question for Mark Cordes. Was Mr. Schulfer actually charged $100 after the second, or after the second time somebody came out and looked at it, or did someone come out a second
He
time?
was charged, yeah, he was charged a $100 service fee, pending the outcome of this and when he can comply by, we will hold off on the next inspection.
Okay, that being said, would it be possible, Mr. Schulfer, for you to work with Mr. Cordes on a timeline perhaps?
It's been really good with timeline, you know. I mean, I understand that. I mean, I understand I'm not going to get anywhere with this. All I was asking, I guess now, I mean, you're obviously going to vote against me. So it's winter time. I can't get it out of there right now. I guess it's up to you guys, because I don't have any say in it.
I do have another question. Oh.
Go ahead.
I guess just going back to Mr. Cordes, what would you recommend in terms of it being winter and moving something such as this out of a backyard at this time? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just issued a similar one, not too far away actually, and I gave them until April 5th. I mean, by April 5th, the snow should be gone. And I think that's a reasonable date. Again, if there's extenuating circumstances, I don't think anybody complains. If they give me a call, that I usually work with them. You know, this situation's been there since November of last year, so it's been there for a while. But I think that's a reasonable timeline for compliance.
Okay, that being said, would we make a movement to allow this to be resolved by April 5th? Or would we just not approve I'm sorry, maybe I'm not finding the right words here. So we wouldn't approve the appeal, but we could work something else out with Mr. Cordes. Like, I guess, would that be the correct way to go about this?
I think our role is to either deny or approve the appeal, and then staff can follow up with anything after that. So it turns over to staff after that. We just need to make the decision: are we upholding the appeal or denying the appeal? So that would be, somebody needs to make a motion one way or the other on that, and let staff take it from there.
So it sounds like Cindy had made a motion already. Then I would second the motion. I would second it.
I'm going to, because I did interrupt Alder Nabel, I'll have you make the motion again and then follow up with a second. Go ahead.
Sure. I would, am I off of mute? I always do this. I would move that we do not accept this appeal, and I do hope that something can be done with the city. Then we're just upholding the ordinance at this.
Okay, so motion to deny the appeal. Do we have a second?
And I would second the motion to not approve the appeal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll bring it back to the public. Mr. Schulfer, do you have any further comments? We have a motion to deny the appeal.
It only takes 2 people to get it denied.
The board will vote, but there's a motion and a second, which is the parliamentary procedure. And now the board will vote on it.
Okay. And there's only 1 citizen on the board, or non-city employee on the board, correct? Right now?
Yes, because 1 board member is excused.
Real quick, strictly speaking, alderpersons are not considered employees.
They're working for the city.
No, we work for our constituents.
I'd like to add the comment though is every board member, whether they're a citizen member or not, needs to comply with the up or down. Does it meet the requirements of the ordinance or not? That's the bottom line that we're all looking at.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. All in favor signify by, to deny the appeal, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The appeal is denied. Thank you, Mr. Schulfer, for attending. We'll move on to appeal number B, or letter B, 2100 McCullough Street. I don't see the appellant here. So Mr. Cordes, do you have any comments on this? This was snow clearing.
I don't have anything other than, what was on my report. So if there's any questions on my report, I can answer those.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Alder Fischler, I would move to deny this appeal
All right.
for 2100 McCullough Street.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We do not have the appellant in attendance, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion to deny carries. Letter C is 401 Minnesota Avenue. I do not see that appellant here. Mr. Cordes, any comments?
Nothing other than what's on the staff report. And
This
again,
was
if there's any
also-
questions, I can answer those.
Yeah, this is also snow clearing. Any questions from the board?
I just have one and I just want to go find it. Sorry. Yeah, the appellant said that the snow fell was Saturday and Sunday, and noticed the shoveling was already done on Monday. So she made an assumption that her neighbor had come forward to do that for her. But that is counted. Saturday and Sunday do count, and I guess that's what the real issue is that it's 24 hours is the correct. It's 24-hour notice before it has to be removed. So unfortunately, that's why I get out there. So I know it, and I try to help out my neighbors too. And it's unfortunate she thought that it was her neighbors. They did not do it, but I would like to say that, well, I'm going to,
Hang on, sorry to interrupt.
yeah, I'm probably not going to vote on this one because I do know the person and I don't know if that makes a difference. So.
All right. Alder Fischler, you got a comment?
I just wanted to note a discrepancy. I just wanted to make sure I had the correct information here. So on the appeals board agenda, item number 3C says 501 Minnesota Avenue, but the property appeal form actually says 301 Minnesota Avenue. So I just wanted to make that noted.
Yeah, I noticed that it is actually 501 is what it should be. That is I don't know why the incorrect ad. I think it's a rental property possibly. And maybe the landlord just inadvertently put down the wrong address. I'm not sure.
Are we sure that this is the correct address, or maybe we should double
Yeah, I can
check
look it up.
that?
I believe it
501
is.
Minnesota is the correct address.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the appeal form, it is incorrect then.
Yeah, I believe that is the case.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I know when I did this a while ago, so, but I looked it up as well, just because it was confusing to me. Yeah, it's the corner of Jordan and Minnesota's 501 Minnesota Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll motion that the appeal be denied.
Motion to deny the appeal. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion to deny the appeal carries. Last one is D, 400 Washington Avenue. Again, snow shoveling. Mr. Cordes, anything to add?
No, nothing other than that. What's in my report? Again, I can answer any questions that anyone would have.
Any questions from the board? I do not see the appellant here.
Alder Fischler, I would move to deny the appeal for 400 Washington Avenue.
I have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second here by Alder Nabel.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye to deny the appeal. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The denial of the appeal carries. We need to schedule date and time for the next meeting is agenda item number 4. Typically, we've been waiting until we see what submissions we have. Clerk Yenter, is that appropriate and okay with you if we wait and see what submissions we have?
That's fine, and at this point, we don't have any.
Okay, so we will, the next date will be pending. With that, our agenda is exhausted and we adjourn at 4:27 p.m. according to my clock. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.